We are very grateful to our sponsor this evening. More Able Than This is sponsored by the Music Department at Georgia College and State University. In addition to bachelor's degrees in music and in music therapy, including a BA plus MAT path to initial music teacher certification, GCSU offers an online master's degree in music education for certified teachers seeking to improve or expand their knowledge and skills, as well as a hybrid Master of Arts in Teaching degree for those seeking initial teacher certification in Georgia. We accept certified and licensed teachers from across the U.S., and Georgia certification is reciprocal with most other states. So don't let state boundaries deter you from applying. Apply now to start in spring or summer 2025. For more information about these degree programs, contact me at tina.holmes-davis@gcsu.edu. That's tina.holmes-davis@gcsu.edu. Welcome to More Able Than This, the podcast where we discuss everything related to disability and music education. More Able Than This is sponsored by the Music Department at Georgia College and State University, Georgia's designated public liberal arts university. Today we'll be talking about teaching music in the county's Autism Hub with special guest Jay Davis. Jay Davis has a Bachelor of Music Education degree from Georgia College and State University and a Master's in Music Education degree from Auburn University. He is the band director at Houston County High School in Warner Robins, Georgia. He currently holds the Executive Vice Presidency of All State Events for GMEA, and is the Davis in my Holmes Davis. So Jay, welcome, and tell us a little bit about teaching in the Autism Hub for your county.
Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for having me here this morning. It's certainly a unique situation because this is kind of the designated autism school for the county. So many of my students are on the spectrum, and with each of those students, there are unique challenges that are presented, but the philosophy remains the same. You teach the kids in the room. So regardless of what they come in with, we're going to teach them to play and love music at whatever level they're comfortable and capable of.
All right. So can you tell us, we hear people say things like that, but what does that actually look like in your 9 to 5? How do you make this happen?
I've got students on the spectrum in any of my 4 concert ensembles, from Wind Symphony down through our Concert 2 group, and they're basically just members of the band. I don't do anything differently with them. I don't treat them any differently. I'm certainly aware of unique challenges and things that they may need that other students don't necessarily need. But as far as I'm concerned, they're just a band kid. They come to class, they play. I've got students on the spectrum who have made high chairs in region band, all the way through students who spend 4 years in concert 2 because that's where their skill and ability levels lie. All of my concert groups are auditioned, and my autism students audition just like the rest of my band students who are not on the spectrum. And like I said, we just, you teach who's in front of you, and meet them where they are and continue on the skill building and the fundamental development, and, just don't make them feel like their autism diagnosis makes them any different in my band program than anybody else.
All right. So the big things that I hear people worry about with students with autism are breakdowns and supervision. And if you have students in every level of your band, I'm assuming that you also have students with autism in the marching band?
Yes.
So tell us about breakdowns and then also about the supervision that students with autism might need when you travel.
Again, unique challenges get presented. I have several stories I could tell about just incidents that have happened and things that have happened. Um, Usually, those things, um, those issues come to a head more on longer overnight spring trips than in any aspect of just the week to week. And I'm very fortunate to have two wonderful teachers that are not music teachers on my band staff who are really, one of them is a special education teacher, the other is the school counselor, and they've been on my staff for years now, and they are uniquely qualified to help and mitigate some of those issues as they arise. Certainly, I am involved in that process, but they are the experts in that.
Well,
And like I said, a perfect example was, um, 2 years ago, we did a trip to Universal Studios with the marching band. And I have a particular student in mind who really struggled with the distance, with the schedule as fast moving as it was. The number of choices they had to make
sure.
was overwhelming to them. And so by the time we would get back to the hotel, I designed my trips so that when we get back to the hotel, they don't get in trouble because they're so exhausted they can barely stand and all they want to do is sleep. And I've been very successful with that. But at the same time, this particular student was having a really difficult time just processing everything throughout the day. It was much, as you can imagine, in Universal Studios, it was a great deal of sensory overload.
Sure.
One thing I've noticed about my autism students is they have at times, a very limited social battery life. And those kind of trips exacerbate that problem. And so, really, this particular student just needed some quiet time in the lobby when everyone else was getting, in their rooms, getting settled for bed. And we just kind of sat with them and, talked to them, and they calmed down and they were able to breathe and all of that kind of, just kind of refocus their attention away from the stress of the day to the fact that we're here, we're calm, you're safe. We were able to get mom on the phone, and mom was able to talk to her child. And that was also very helpful. And, we've got several students who have had those kind of issues. Now, the same student that I'm referring to in this case from Universal also traveled last year. My Wind Symphony was very fortunate to be invited to be a part of the National Band and Orchestra Festival and perform in Carnegie Hall. And the student was in that group as well, and it was a complete 180 as far as her ability to manage the trip and feel like a lot of the issues that we had previously, she had adapted and had developed coping strategies in that 10-month span before we went to New York. She had a great trip. It was a great time. And to be honest, internally as a staff, we were concerned because there was a lot of things that could have happened, could have been problematic, that ended up being not an issue at all. And there were some curveballs that got thrown at us on that trip.
Sure.
Just the logistics of traveling with, 85 people in New York City. They do present challenges, but the student was just a pro, and I've seen them a couple of times as they started their freshman year in college, and they're still playing, and they're doing just fantastically, adjusted to college life as well. So, like I said, every student's going to be unique. Every student's going to have different things that set off reactions, and just and I think it's important to note here that with my non-autism and my autism students, that the relationship with the students, every student that I teach, allows me to know how to approach those situations uniquely. I say all the time in my band program, I say to my staff, I say to my band parents, I believe in relationship over rehearsal.
Uh-huh.
I think if the relationship is solid and there's a good foundation with the students, that trust is there, that we are able to do things musically that are beyond what a lot of bands are able to do because we do have that relationship. But it also allows me in those situations where a kid's maybe having a breakdown or is overwhelmed to be able to speak to them in a way that's meaningful to them.
Sure.
And, the next student comes up and I may approach that student completely differently.
Sure.
So I think all of those things are really important to think about as you do teach autistic students.
All right, so I'm hearing number one that you have a universal design in your program that allows your students with autism to function like all of the other students. They audition and they play in the band class that meets their level and developmental needs. You also have in your band parent organization, you have people who are with the band and who are known by the band, who are, there to and qualified to help with any student, but as also with your students with autism, if we do have those needs. And then also you have that relationship with all of your students. All right.
And I think of all of the things that you just kind of enumerated, the third one is the most important.
Sure.
Because that allows the trust to be there that when a breakdown is happening, that we can pull them out of that because they feel safe with us and the staff and with me all the time. And they know that we're going to protect them and get them through it. And that makes the de-escalation a lot quicker most of the time than maybe in other cases. And it makes it, probably they're not as overwhelmed because there is that feeling of being in a safe space all the time.
Sure. Have you ever had any parents who were skeptical maybe of having their children in your band because they have autism and they weren't sure how their child was going to be able to function in that setting?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you tell us about some?
It's just, every parent who has a child with autism always has those concerns. And most of those concerns happen in the transition between 8th grade and 9th grade because there are so many new things.
Sure.
I teach at a rather large high school. We have 2,100 students. It's a big campus. And, one of the things that I encourage, my marching band program is completely extracurricular. It's not part of the curriculum. It's if you want to be a marching band, you're a marching band. If you're not, just play in concert band, play well. Great. But I really push marching band, especially, well, I push it for everybody, but I also really encourage my autistic students because that gives them 3 weeks before school starts with their people, with the band kids who are fiercely protective of our freshman class every year.
Sure.
I'm very proud of that. But they also get a chance to get comfortable with the school, with the layout. They know where things are. And it makes those first few days of school much, much more comfortable.
Sure.
But it also gives them that built-in safety net where, you have friends and acquaintances before you walk in the building that are there. Another thing I have that I'm really particularly proud of is we have a small group of leadership called the freshman support team. And their job is solely to check in with all of the freshmen on a weekly basis and just make sure if they have any needs, if they're struggling with the class, if they have, just emotional, if just questions. That we have students that's job is to make sure that they are taken care of. So I think all of those things, and I think that one of the things about being at this school in particular for the last 10 years is that the reputation is there, that we are going to protect the students' safety above all else, and that we have developed this environment where it is comfortable and protective and safe.
Okay. And so the parents kind of word of mouth to each other that, oh no, your baby's going to be fine.
Yeah, that helps a lot, to be honest. And
Yes.
especially now, 10 years at Houston County, I mean, I'm teaching siblings of siblings that
Sure.
I've had. I've had some parents involved with the program for upwards of 8 of my 10 years here now because their kids have all gone through the program. I'm very grateful for that. But when you have that institutional memory and new parents have questions, those questions get answered by someone besides me.
Sure.
I think that's important, and I think it's very helpful that,
Good.
that we have that positive reputation for being able to give your child what they need where they are.
All right, so we've talked a lot about where you are, and certainly you're at the Autism Hub. But let's back up. You taught at a couple, 2 or 3 schools before you got to Houston County. Did you have different or similar experiences with your students with autism in those schools?
It's hard to say. I taught at a private school for a number of years, and the number of students with those kind of issues was much, much lower. Part of that was just because the student population was much lower. I mean, I literally have more students in my band program here than there were in the entire high school portion of the private school I was at. So just percentage wise, it was much, much less. But my philosophy has always been the same. If you want to do band, we're going to make band work for you. Never played, I remember having a kid walk in the room one of my early years at the private school who had never played an instrument, said he wanted to get in the band. I said, great, I need a tuba player. Do you want to play tuba? He's like, what's tuba? It's that big thing. He goes, sure, I'll try it. Taught him how to buzz, gave him a book, sent a buddy back there with him. By the time that kid finished high school, he was first chair All-State.
All right, yeah.
So again, you present the opportunities, and so to answer your question, like
Yes.
it doesn't. There are certainly, because of the nature of the school that I teach at, there is much, much more students who have unique needs. And but my philosophy on how I approach those students was set before I got here, because I just, a very wise band director said, teach who's in front of you. And I say all the time, it's easy to look for greener grass, but you could just water the grass where you are.
Sure.
So it's kind of one of those deals where, like, because of my personality and who I am, teaching the students with autism has been no different than teaching the students without autism. This is my 23rd year in education. If you want to play, we're going to make you play.
All right. And that's the thing that, I kind of, part of the reason this podcast exists is, you hear all the time music teachers say that music is for everyone. But when it's time to actually put, boots on the ground, they want to do it. But they the strategies aren't there all the time, and the resources aren't there all the time. So we feel helpless because we really meant it when we said that, music is for everyone, but we just can't figure out how to do it. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I do have another question. Do the other students in your class struggle with the students with autism at all?
No, because they've grown up with these students. They've been, with them longer than I have.
Sure.
And so, I mean, there are certain idiosyncrasies that autism students sometimes have, but the students in my program, it's a very, we talk family all the time. And I'm really proud of that fact with my program, that it really is a family. And rather than chastising or shunning or, ostracizing a child because they're autistic, they're welcomed and they're included and they're taken care of. And that's, I say all the time, I want to teach you about band, but it's more important to teach you to be good human beings.
Sure.
And that's probably the thing about my program with all of our musical successes that I'm most proud of, is that hopefully they leave being better people than they were when they walked in. And certainly part of that is being able to support students with autism or other needs, or there's always students with physical impairments and all of that kind of stuff. And just teaching them how to deal with other humans. With a program as large as mine, you're not going to like everybody every day. But that doesn't mean you can't work with them.
That's
and
true.
That doesn't mean, and then it's such an important life lesson. So I don't think that there is I can't remember a single instance in my 10 years here where I felt like one of my autism students or any of my other special needs students were shunned or bullied or ostracized because of who they were.
All right. I remember a few years ago going bowling with your senior class when one of your students with autism was graduating. And, like you said, that sensory overwhelm is a big thing for a lot of people with autism. And this student didn't participate in the bowling just because, it was so loud and so many moving pieces. But about the time it was time for everybody to go, the student went and got a ball and was ready to bowl then. And the students that were still there that hadn't left yet played a frame with them.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I just remember, thinking, well, goodness gracious, because they allowed him to function on his terms, and there was no you should have bowled when everybody else bowled. It was just, oh, you're ready now, well, let's go. So, and I remember that sticking out to me. So yeah, very cool. And I know that you're on a tight schedule on this Friday with the football game. So do you have anything else that, any other kind of strategies that will actually make this run for teachers who maybe, want to do it but don't know how?
Yeah, and I mean, there's not like a handbook on how to do it, because every student's needs are going to be unique. Every school's support systems are going to be unique. I'm fortunate to teach in a school that is hugely supportive of our special needs population, and there are so many things in place to support them and give them what they need. But basically it just boils down to the teacher being willing to make it work for their students. I've had students who were very low functioning on the spectrum, and at some point it's more about the kid, and needs to always be more about the kid than the festival scores or the marching contest ratings or all that stuff. You can write a part that every kid can play.
Sure.
You have to be willing to do it, and you have to also be willing to understand that they deserve that. They deserve to have the same experience as every other child. And you rewrite clarinet parts for your wind symphony kids because there's some technical things they may not can do. Why wouldn't you do that for a kid with special needs? Sometimes you need to beef up a tenor melody, and so you add a euphonium to the trombone part or whatever. I mean, we do all those things all the time because we're working towards that goal of, I got to get a 1 at contest, or I've got to get a 1 at LGP, or whatever it is. Why are we not doing that for our kids who just play band concerts? You have to take the first step.
Sure. And that goes kind of back to the second episode where I talked about the musical product versus the process. And so, you just have to. Do you find, as the band director, that you devote a large amount of time to this one specific population, or do you find that it's about the same amount of time that you would devote to any population?
Like I said, I'm rewriting oboe parts for my wind symphony right now because I don't have an oboe in my program right now. It doesn't take any more time to write a percussion part or a wind part for one of my autism students who may need some accommodations than it would be for me to spend the time writing out the oboe part.
All right.
Put it on your to-do list, make sure it gets done, and make sure they have it, and work with them on it if they need it. And lots of times they don't. And I mean I've got kids that literally do great. Their best work is to be able to play 4 straight quarter notes on a triangle. All the way to kids who are in my most advanced group making second chair in the region band and close to making all-state. It's such a wide gap of where kids fall on the autism spectrum. And they're wonderful children. They're such good kids. And I'm lucky. I'm spoiled. I have good kids in all of my band.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just really, no, I would say absolutely not. If you have the right mentality and the right like intention for making music accessible for everybody, then it's not a daunting task.
Okay.
You just put it on your to-do list and get it done and keep it moving and get the kids involved.
All right. Thank you so much. Because like I said, this is the area where I get the most questions of, concern from music teachers. And I think, having your specialized experiences, will help us to be able to do these things and not be scared to try.
It can't be about scores and ratings.
Uh-huh.
We are in the business of teaching kids, and if you're not accommodating these students because you're worried about an LGPE score, then maybe you need to reevaluate why you're in the profession.
Okay.
And I would say that to anybody.
Okay.
Because we are about teaching kids. And that is our number one most important job that we do.
All right. And you certainly, in your program, your LGPE scores haven't suffered for doing these things.
No.
So, yeah, and you're saying that the scores haven't suffered, and also your time commitment to your program hasn't suffered. You're not up there nights and weekends trying to do the things that these students need.
No.
So,
and that comes from treating them just like any other band student.
Mm-hmm.
Some Sunday afternoons I write out, horn parts and double it in a trumpet because I need some beefing up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not autistic kids. I just do it because the band needs it. You do it because the band needs it, and that's it. That's the whole thing about it is that you have to be aware of their needs, but their need most importantly is to feel included and feel loved and to feel part of it. And that should be your priority. And whatever it takes to make that happen, it's really not going to change your day-to-day focus, or it's not a daunting task at all to support these students. And it shouldn't be anyway, for sure.
Yeah, well, this brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you, Mr. J. Davis, for joining us to discuss teaching music in the Autism Hub. We hope you feel inspired, equipped, and ready to work with the disabled musicians in your community. If you learned something here, please like and subscribe to our show and return on November 23rd for our next episode. Until then, this is Dr. Tina Holmes Davis reminding you that small efforts create meaningful results.